Good day, students. Welcome to our series of research discussion. And for today's lesson, we are going to have our next write-up session, where I will be discussing the methodology of the study or research methodology. In other institutions, it is in Chapter 3, while others have it in Chapter 2. Regardless of what chapter number is it, the contents of this chapter are all the same, though there are some variations of the terms and guidelines. Just a quick recap, you are done with the first chapter of your thesis writing, which includes the introduction, RRL, SOP, among other sections, which are all integral in conceptualizing your research. In this chapter, the methodology of the study will cover the steps and procedures that you will use in conducting your research. Let's get started. So let's define first research methodology. So when we say research methodology, it is considered to be the entire strategy for the study from identification of the problem to final plans for data collection. By now, we already know that there are two broad categories of research methodology. Diba, you have your qualitative research and quantitative research. The research method determines the approach that you will take as a researcher in identifying relevant data and collecting and analyzing the information gathered in the research. In your thesis, it is mainly evident in a specific chapter titled Methodology of the Study, which includes the following sections. You have methods and techniques used, Locale, Respondents, instruments of the study, data gathering procedure, data processing and statistical treatment, and finally, your ethical considerations. So, iyan yung mga sakop ng research methodology at iyan ang mga susunod yung isusulat for your research. Let's discuss them one by one. First, we have methods and techniques used. So, in your university format, LCUP, the first section of Chapter 2 is labeled as methods and techniques used. But in other cases, we use the term research design more specifically. So in this section, we discuss three major points. You have research approach, research design, and research methods. So research approaches muna tayo. These are plans and the procedures for research that span the steps from broad assumptions to detailed methods of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. So there are three approaches that you can use or choose from, and this is actually just a review. So first you have quantitative research, or this is like a positivist. It is an approach for testing objective theories by examining the relationship among variables. These variables can be measured typically on instruments so that numbered data can be analyzed using statistical procedures. Researchers have assumptions about testing theories deductively, building in protections against bias, controlling for alternative explanations, and being able to generalize and replicate the findings. So that is for quantitative research. On the other hand, we have qualitative research or the naturalistic. It is an approach for exploring and understanding the meaning individuals or groups ascribe to a social or human problem. The process involves emerging questions and procedures, data typically collected in the participant's setting, data analysis inductively building from particulars to general themes, and the researcher making interpretations of the meaning of the data. Researchers use an inductive style, a way focusing on individual meaning and the importance of rendering the complexity of a situation. So that is for qualitative research. Finally, we have mixed methods research. So it is an approach to inquiry involving collecting both quantitative and qualitative data, integrating the two forms of data, and using distinct designs that may involve philosophical assumptions and theoretical frameworks. The core assumption is that the combination of qualitative and quantitative approaches provides a more complete understanding of a research problem than either approach alone. So, ito yung ating tatlong research approaches. So, in this table, I just indicated here the differences between quanti versus qualitative approach in quick glance. I have described them already and I'll just flash it so we can move now to the next slide. So we have the research design. So the researcher not only selects a qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods study to conduct. So the inquirer also decides on a type of study within these three choices. That leads us to our leads us to our research design. And as discussed before, a research design is the blueprint or outline for a research study. So research designs are types of inquiry within qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods approaches that provide specific direction for procedures. Others have called them strategies of inquiry. That's according to Denzin and Lincoln 2011. So you have to be guided by your problem statement, your framework, and variables so you can map out the best design to achieve a detailed research plan for collecting and analyzing data. So it has to be congruent. So yung research design mo, kailangan congruent siya dun pa lang sa inyong SOP to your framework and variables. So this is the summary of the major categories of research design. We have their quanti, quali, and mixed methods. And of course, inline or connected yan with the previous concept natin kanina about research approach. So I'll just flash it again since na-discuss naman na natin ito in our lecture part. So, ayan. In this slide, I just showed you here some of the quantitative research design that we have discussed, which you can possibly use in your study. So the two major categories are experimental design and non-experimental design. So under experimental design, it is further classified as to either true, quasi, and pre-experimental design. We have already discussed the characteristics of each design. For example, what are the criteria of pre-test, post-test control group design, characteristics of non-equivalent control group design, etc. So you must be familiar first with each design so you can determine if it's really applicable or aligned with your current research work. So you cannot just blindly say that you will use correlational study without knowing what it is, right? Ayan. So these are some of your options for quantitative design. So on the other hand, these are some of the designs that you can use naman if you're going to uh, use qualitative research design. So again, by now, you should know them so you can determine its appropriateness with your research work. So pheno-grounded narrative, ethno, case study, or historical research. That is for qualitative design. Okay, so that is research design concept. The third one is the research methods. So the third major element in the framework is the specific research methods that involve the forms of data collection, analysis, and interpretation that researchers propose for their studies. So these are the methods that we can employ for our chosen approach, be it quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method. So we have to be guided by their methods and techniques. So let's have an example, integrating the three concepts na na-discuss ko, yung research approach, yung design, at saka yung methods. So for instance, ang pinili nyo na approach is quantitative. So definitely, you need to know the assertions and concepts of quantitative approach. And then, you also need to understand the research design available to that approach, which is quantitative. Yung mga pinakita ko kanina. And finally, yung mga methods that the approach specifically follow. So kung ang approach mo ay quantitative, yung design mo should be also quantitative, and then your methods should also follow quantitative method. Okay, so I cannot overemphasize here the importance of alignment from the selected approach to the design and methods that you will employ in your research. Another example, ang napili mong approach ay qualitative approach, for example. No, hindi ka pwedeng mag-experimental design or di kaya ay post-test only design kasi ay pang-quantitative yon. So, hindi ka din pwedeng gumamit ng questionnaires or statistical analysis kasi nga ang approach mo ay qualitative. So, hindi siya tugma or hindi siya aligned. So, kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, it has to be congruent, no, from the approach that you have chosen down to your design and methods. So that's just a quick overview of the concepts. Punta na tayo sa write-up natin. So what are the things that you need to include in your methods and techniques used? So for paragraph 1, you need to indicate your research approach. Yung diniscuss ko kanina, quali, quanti, or mixed methods. So how do you do that? So first, you have to indicate the research approach that you need or that you intend to use. Quantitative ba yan, qualitative, or mixed methods research. Second, you have to give a brief explanation or overview of the chosen research approach along with the methods and techniques that it employs. And you have to observe proper citation or referencing in doing so. And then yung pangatlo, justify why this research approach is best for addressing your research problem. So I'll give you an example later. So that is how you will write paragraph 1, no, that is research approach. For paragraph 2, you need to stipulate your research design naman. Again, paragraph 2, research design naman ang ilalagay dito. So how do you do that? First, you have to indicate the type of research design that you intend to use. Remember, be specific. Second, you have to give a brief explanation or overview of the chosen research design. Again, observe proper citation and or referencing. And then if an experimental quantitative design is used, you have to specify what are its characteristics or criteria. And then finally, the third one is you have to justify why this research design is best for addressing your research problem. So that is for paragraph 2. Again, research design yung nilalagay doon. That having said, let's proceed with our format and example. So format first, follow the same format that you used in writing your chapter 1. So you have your Times New Roman 10 or is Times New Roman 12, double spacing and justified yan. Indicate here that it's already chapter 2, all caps, centered, at saka bold. And then underneath, we labeled it as methodology of the study. And then below this, the title of your chapter 2, we have here, we provide an introductory statement for the chapter, such as in this example. This chapter presents the methods and techniques that will be employed in the study, the research locale or setting, respondents and instruments, data gathering procedure, data processing and statistical treatment of data, and ethical considerations. So you may create your own statement, or you may use this one. Next, we have the first section, which is methods and techniques to be used. Okay, please take note, yung label niya ay methods and techniques to be used, since mag-undergo pa lang ito ng proposal. Mag-undergo pa lang kayo ng proposal. Pero pag tapos na, papalitan nyo yung label na yan as methods and techniques used. So, wala na yung to be kapag ka natapos na kayo in your proposal. And just the same, if magpo-proposal pa lang kayo, your statement should be in future tense, since gagawin nyo pa lang yung study ninyo. Again, maka-future tense kayo. Kung tapos na kayo, tsaka pa lang yan, magiging past tense. So, you have to be guided accordingly. So, let's have this example. The title of the study is The Psychological Impact and Coping Strategies Among Public School Teachers in Schools Division of Bulacan During Coronavirus Pandemic. So, Basis for Wellness Intervention Program Development. And here's the methods and techniques section. So again, first paragraph muna tayo. It's about the research approach. So first paragraph, research approach yan. So yung number 1 indicated the specific research approach that will be used in the study. And in this example, the researcher will utilize quantitative research. So meaning, the approach na ginamit dito or gagamitin is quantitative research. And as you can see, yung number 2 naman is the brief discussion of what quantitative approach is, including its methods and techniques. So let's read. So quantitative research, which is an approach for testing objective theories by examining the relationship among variables. So Creswell 2008 further elucidated that these variables in turn can be measured typically on instruments so that numbered data can be analyzed using statistical procedures. So as you notice, we have citation here. Okay, so you have to cite your reference appropriately. And then lastly, we have here, yung naka number 3 here, this is the justification on how the chosen approach fits with the current study. So sabi dito, this approach along with its indicated methods is appropriate in the present study since it is concerned with describing the association between variables and will test theories deductively. The data will be collected using standardized questionnaires and analyzed objectively using statistical procedures. So, ayan, yung tatlong guidelines na binigay ko of what to write for your paragraph 1, which is about approach, nandito siya lahat. Okay, so that's for the first paragraph. So second paragraph is about research design. So this is just a continuation, known as methods and techniques to be used pa rin tayo. So second paragraph is about the specific research design. So yung number 1, we have indicated here the specific research design naman. Okay, research design na tayo. Kung kanina here in this example is about approach. In this paragraph, research design naman. So specify the research design that you will use or that you will be using. So in this case, the study, it will specifically use, siguro typo lang to, no? So the study will specifically use descriptive correlational design. Okay, and then as you can see, yung number 2 naman, this is a brief discussion of what is descriptive and also what is correlational design. And you notice there is a citation there. So let's read yung definition. So Johnson and Christensen emphasize that the primary purpose of descriptive research is to provide an accurate description or picture of the status or characteristics of a situation or phenomenon. So diniscuss niya yung descriptive research. Tapos ito naman yung sa correlational design. The focus of the correlational design is not on ferreting out cause and effect relationships, but rather on describing the variables that exist in a given situation. And the statement goes on. Tapos, lastly, you have number 3. This is a justification of how the chosen design fits with the current study. So do not forget to contextualize to your study and yung justification. So ito yung kanyang justification. So the design fits the design, which is descriptive correlational design, fit fit daw siya with the study since it is a non-experimental design and is concerned to determine to what extent psychological impact is related to coping strategies during COVID-19 pandemic among public school teachers. So yun yung kanyang justification na naka-contextualize in the study. So that's how you're going to write the first section, which is methods and techniques used. So again, your first paragraph, um, it will be about your research approach. Second paragraph is about your research design. So the second section of the chapter is locale of the study. Sa iba, it is labeled as research locale or research setting. Pero pareho lang sila, no? Naiba lang yung term. So under the locale of the study, we discuss here the research place or location or setting. So research locale or setting describes in brief the place where the study is conducted. So it discusses the site or sites where the sampling and data collection will take place. So here are the guidelines in writing the research locale. So first, only identify the locale by its name only if you have sought permission. So pwede nyo nang ilagay yung proper name ng location or institution kung pinayagan kayo na sabihin or i-divulge yung the name of the institution. So if the permission was not granted, so refer the local or the organization or the institution to its characteristics. So for example, you can just indicate the setting as an autonomous university in Quezon City if you are referring to a university school sa Quezon City. So pwede niyang sabihin autonomous university in Quezon City instead of saying the proper name of that school. Another example, a tertiary 200-bed capacity hospital. Instead na sabihin mo yung pinaka-proper name ng hospital na yon. Another example, a fisher folk community in Cavite. Instead of saying na barangay, for example, Ginhawa, okay? Or something like that. So instead of saying a proper name, so you just indicate the characteristic of that place. Or pwede rin naman you can just indicate a pseudonym, no? So pwede kayo magbigay ng pseudonym for that matter. For example, you have Barangay A o kaya Barangay B or Hospital 1 or Hospital 2 instead of saying again the proper name of the hospital or of the institution. So here you have to take into consideration the privacy of the place or the institution or organization. So that's the first. Second, describe the area in terms of its geographic location. So again, ito yung second guideline na ilalagay mo in writing your research locale. So describe the area in terms of its geographic location up to city or municipal level unless contraindicated by the institution. So for locations outside the city capital or main city, so always indicate how far it is from the capital in terms of kilometers or kilometer. So for instance, Lingayen, Pangasinan, 221 kilometers from Manila. Okay, so something like that. Third guideline, discuss details about the locale that relates it to the study's focus. So if needed, you may also discuss the social and historical context of the place. Again, if needed lang. Fourth, justify why this location is the best place for you to access samples and collect data. So justification, again, yung number 4. And then yung number 5, you may use maps. So gagamit lang kayo ng maps if the area is not frequently heard of. Kung bihira lang marinig or unfamiliar yung area na yon. Or if you have multiple sites of whose locations you have to indicate. So, kung marami kayong sites or locations na pagkukuha na ng data, then you can also provide a map for that. So, kadalasan, naglalagay tayo ng maps using a Google Map, no? So, screenshot of the Google Map and then we place that we place the image under this section. So take note, if your study has multiple sites, a full description is written for each. Halimbawa, may 3 kang sites, so you have to describe each of them. So here is our format. So label it as locale of the study. This example is an excerpt from the study entitled Resources and Strategies Used by Nursing Students in Compliance with the Skills Laboratory Output by Acosta et al. 2022. So I will not be reading specifically the example. Instead, I'll just point out the significant things to include in this section. So again, just indicate the place where your study will be conducted. You can indicate the name of the specific locale if you are permitted to do so by the authorized person of that place. Otherwise, keep the privacy and anonymity of the place or institution by just describing its characteristics or using pseudonyms. So dito ginamit niya yung proper name. So probably permitted to by the for example the dean or the president of the institution. Next, describe the geographic location of the area unless contraindicated by the institution. The details about the locale that relates it to the study's focus, and then the justification why this place or institution is the best place for you to access samples and collect data. So don't forget to include all those details for this section. Tapos, may map siyang nilagay dito. So again, I already told you kung kailan kayo maglalagay ng map, right, in your locale of the study. So kung ito ay not frequently heard of or kung multiple sites ang gagawa nyo ng research, then you have to include a map. So next, we have the respondents of the study section. So in other institution, ang label nila dito ay population and sample. Sa EAC or EAC, ang label nila dito ay research participants or respondents. At nakahiwalay to another section, nakahiwalay to another section yung sampling technique. Pero pareho lang sila ng contents, no? So, again, respondents of the study. So sa LCUP format, we use this term, this label, respondents of the study, kung saan magkasama na ang respondents of the study, that is one paragraph, tapos second paragraph yung sampling technique. So, for the respondents of the study section, it discusses the complete details of who are qualified to participate in the study and how they are selected in the study. So, quick recall again. So, population, this is a complete set of persons or objectives that possess some common characteristics of interest to the researcher. Example, all nursing students in Bulacan. So that can be a population. Pag sinabi namang sample, it is a subset of the population selected to represent the population. For this example, first year nursing students in State University in Bulacan. So that can be also our sample. Kanina yung population, all nursing students in Bulacan. For the specific sample naman, pwede kang kumuha ng first year lang, nursing students in State University in Bulacan. Okay, so it is the subset of the population, which is representing the population. So that's a sample. So we use samples because the accuracy gained when all members are included is often not worth the time and money involved. So, kung napakalaki ng population, for example, baka maka-spend tayo ng too much money or hindi kayanin ng time. Okay, pag sinabi namang sampling, it is a process of selecting a portion of the population to represent the entire population. So, ito yung pinaka-process. Pag sinabing sampling, ito yung pinaka-process of selecting a sample, okay, from a population. So in this slide, we already discussed this one in our Nursing Research 1 lecture part. Or if not yet, this is our next lesson sa lecture natin. So the sampling methods, we have probability sampling, which is also termed as scientific sampling. So this one is unbiased. No? Other term for this is scientific sampling. And we have four under this. So we have the simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling. So we usually use this in quantitative research with the goal of obtaining representative elements of the population objectively. Each population element has a known chance or probability of being selected for the sample. On the other hand, we have the non-probability sampling, which is a process of selecting respondents in which not all members of the entire population are given a chance of being selected as samples. So the subjects are chosen based on their availability or the purpose of the study, and in some cases, on the sole discretion of the researcher. So under this, we have convenience sampling, judgmental, snowball sampling, and quota sampling. So again, please review our discussion about this one because you need to decide in this write-up session about the appropriate sampling technique for your study. So yung pagpili ng sampling technique will depend on your chosen approach. Kung quanti, quali, or mixed method, which is rooted in your SOP, so the alignment on how we can answer the problems of your study. So in quantitative research, the goal would be to conduct a random sampling that ensures the sample group would be representative of the entire population, and therefore, the results could be generalized to the entire population. Sa qualitative research naman, the goal is to provide an in-depth understanding and therefore targets a specific group, type of individual, event, or process. So to accomplish qualitative research, focus will be on a criterion-based sampling technique to reach their target group. But we have cases naman na sometimes for quantitative research, we use non-probability sampling due to some reasons. So nangyayari yun, ano, pag quantitative research, sometimes we use non-probability sampling. So we have other factors pa to consider in choosing the sampling technique, which we have already discussed or will be discussing, like the homogeneity of the population, degree of precision, among others. So kindly review them na lang. And then pag-usapan muna natin si inclusion and exclusion criteria. So establishing inclusion and exclusion criteria for study participants is a standard required practice when designing high-quality research protocols. So inclusion criteria will explain the different requirements someone must meet in order to participate in your study. Okay, so depending on your study's aims and procedures, this could include a participant's pwedeng certain age group, gender, specific medical diagnosis, etc. na details specific to your study. So, yun yung mga pwede mong maging inclusion criteria. Halimbawa, adolescent group, age 12 to 17 years old. Or pwedeng gender, female lang. Okay? Depending on your study again. So, it is your responsibility to determine which criteria are crucial for your participants to meet in order to help the study collect the most significant results. So, sa exclusion criteria naman tayo, it should list, exclusion criteria should list features of a person that, if met, immediately deems that person ineligible to participate in the study. So the exclusion criteria consists of qualities about a person or the external factors around them that would go against the goal of your study or interfere with it. So this could include, for example, current medication use, diagnosis of a condition that might interfere with the integrity of data collected. Paano yung sample statement na ginagamit dito in general? So ito yon. Subjects who have active medical or psychiatric conditions which, in the opinion of the researcher or investigative team, would compromise or interfere with their ability to participate in the study. So that is a sample statement that most of the time nilalagay natin as an exclusion criteria. Okay? Yung medical or psychiatric condition. Okay, so next thing na dapat alam natin is how to compute the sample size. So we have first the Slovin's formula. So it is used to calculate an appropriate sample size or the number of respondents from a population. So this is the Slovin's formula that we use to calculate the sample. So I will not discuss it further. Instead, I just indicated here the link where you can study the latter independently. Again, dapat alam nyo how to compute for the sample size, and one way is Slovin's formula. So please watch the discussion na lang on how to compute this one. So the title of the video in YouTube is Solving Sample Size Given Population Statistics. And this is the link for that. So aside from the manual computation, you can also solve for the sample size using online applications and softwares that estimate requirements based on certain criteria set. So like population, confidence interval, level of significance. So yun yung mga criteria na sineset natin. So we have here the G-power, the epi information or the epi info, and you have the raw soft. So, marami pa yan. Some institution permits its use. Ayan. So, ito yung mga links na you can access them. So, if your institution permits to use them or to use this one for computing your sample, then you may access them in this link or tawag dito, in this address. Okay, so now that we already know those concepts, no? So we proceed with the write-up na. So what do you include in this section sa respondents of the study? So yung first paragraph, you discuss the population or your respondents, and it should answer the following. Letter A, who are the target respondents? And then letter B, what are the inclusion and exclusion criteria? Ito yung discuss ko kanina. So, considering the sampling technique that you intend to use. Okay, so yung second paragraph naman, so again, this is the inclusion, or I mean yung mga nilalagay natin for the inclusion, for the first paragraph, which talks about the population or the respondents of your study. Ito naman sa second paragraph. So dito nilalagay natin yung sampling. So it's about the sampling technique, and it should answer the following. So what is the sampling technique that you will use in your study? And then explain the method and justify your choice with cited literature. Letter B, where will you find your respondents to recruit them? Letter C, what is your sample size? You can present your computation if available, or indicate what if, application was used to arrive in that sample size. And then letter D, if the sample size is still indefinite, as indicated by certain study designs, mostly qualitative designs, then explain how the sampling size will be eventually determined in the conduct of the study. Example, kapag may data saturation na ba or may theoretical saturation. So itong letter D, this is most of the time applicable sa qualitative design. So this is our example. So we have here the label, respondents of the study. So the title of this study is this one, Compassion Fatigue Vis-a-vis Work Performance of District Hospital Nurses. And this is the work of Cosma et al. 2022. And again, we structure it into two paragraphs. So this is one paragraph and this is the other. So yung first paragraph is about the respondents. Second paragraph is about the sampling. Okay, so dito muna tayo sa first paragraph about the respondents. So for the the first paragraph is for the target respondents. So who are they? So in this example, target respondents are hospital nurses. So these are now the inclusion and the exclusion criteria in the study. So inclusion criteria, at least 1 year experience in the ER, ward, and ORDR complex. Ages 21 to 59 years old, etc. External naman, exclusion criteria naman, nurses who have less than 1 year of experience and age 60 and above were excluded. Nurses who are suffering from emotional or mental health issues and nurses in private hospitals were not included as respondents of the study. So meaning exclusion pa rin yun. So that is the first paragraph. Yung second paragraph natin is about the sampling technique and the computation of the sample size. So sampling technique na ginamit in this example is purposive sampling, and the sample size is 222 out of 424 population of nurses. So in this example, it used raw soft calculator to compute for the sample size instead of Slovin's formula or any other application. So in-indicate natin yung margin of error, usually 5% in nilalagay dyan talaga. and a 95% confidence level. So, yan yung criteria or setting most of the time. So, as you would notice, lahat ng guidelines na binanggit natin of what to include in this section ay makikita natin in this example. So, sa paper nyo, dapat clearly stated din lahat ng guidelines na yan. And then, pinakita in the study the distribution of respondents per hospital. So we maintain the privacy of the hospitals that participated in this study since it used pseudonyms like Hospital A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Ayan. So hindi niya nilagay yung proper name ng mga hospitals na yan. Only pseudonyms. So makikita ilan yung sample size per institution. Example, Hospital A, we have 13. Hospital B, the sample size is 18. And then the percentage per hospital. So you may also do the same if it applies to your study. So pwede kayo mag-tabulate din ng ganyan for easy visualization of your sample. Okay, so this one is another example. The title of this study is Hope and Health-Related Quality of Life in Patients with Cancer Undergoing Adjuvant Therapy, Marquez 2018. So the first paragraph again is about the respondents, and the second paragraph is the sampling technique, where it used consecutive sampling or total enumerative sampling. So I will not read the example thoroughly. This is just for your additional reference. So continuation to nung example na yon, number 2. So in this slide, pinakita nung researcher what transpired during the study, reason why it was conducted in the community setup. So another good example, I was not able to get the title since this is just a proposal paper. This is from Subido 2022 sa Davao Doctors College. So yung aim ng study niya is to determine the effect of COVID-19 stress on the resilience of nurses of the private and public hospitals in the province of Sultan Kudarat, Region 12. So in this example, it used stratified random sampling naman. So same pa rin yung format. And then continuation to on example number 3 by Subido 2020. Again, for your reference na lang. So parang ito rin yung ganit yung example number 2, no? So they are almost the same. So again, this is for your additional reference. So move na tayo sa susunod, which is the fourth section, the instruments of the study. Or in other schools, they simply use research instrument. So ayan, pang-apat na tayo. So we're done with the first 3. So this section outlines the instruments you will use in the study, such as questionnaires for quantitative and interview questions for qualitative research to orderly and accurately collect and store data. So research instrument is defined as a technical device designed to obtain data and information requirements of a research problem. It is the materialization of a research method, and two of the most commonly used research instruments are test for experimental and questionnaire for non-experimental design. So remember that for each of the different major variables that you have, research methods and types of data, a research instrument is used. So this table shows the common instruments used for different data types. By the way, apologies if medyo maliliit yung mga sulat or even sa mga previous slides ko, no? Maliliit yung mga na ilalagay ko. Just ano na lang, kindly zoom in na lang in your screens. So this table shows the common instruments used for different data types. For example, your data type or your research method is self-report data, like survey, okay? So you can use the instruments, questionnaires, psychological tests, or exams, which ang sabi ko nga ay most common kanina. Kung interview naman, you have the instrument, interview schedule or guide, and pwede ring audio recorder. So, yan pa yung iba, focus group discussion, you have this one. These are the instruments for journaling. Ito yung, for example, this is your research method, journaling. So, these are the instruments you can use for that. For observation, for example, observation for qualitative research, ito yung mga instruments you can use for that. So again, familiarize yourself na lang with this. So let's have a short discussion of the concept first. So pag sinabing questionnaire, it is a research device or instrument that is made up of a series of questions which are close-ended or open-ended. So the goal of questionnaire is to collect relevant data from respondents which can then be used for a variety of purposes. So we have types of questionnaire. So we have exploratory questionnaire, which is for qualitative. So this is also known as unstructured questionnaires, and they are used to collect qualitative data, which is information that can be observed and recorded but isn't numerical in nature. So that is exploratory questionnaire. Next, you have formal standardized questionnaire, and this is for quantitative naman. They are also known as structured questionnaires kasi the questions are really structured. They're already there. All the respondents just have to answer the questions. So these ones are used to collect quantitative data, which is information recorded as a count or numerical value. So the data is quantifiable, which means that it can be used for mathematical calculations or statistical analysis. Question types natin for formal standardized questionnaire, you have recognition type, where you provide fixed alternative answers to your respondents. Pwede multiple choice, dichotomous, and scaled questions. So those are the type of questions for quantitative or formal standardized questionnaire. And then let's focus for a while with the scaled questionnaires or with scaled questionnaires. So scaled questions are common and are often used to judge the degree of a feeling. So types of this include, madalas nyo kasi maririnig to, Likert scale. So that is a scaled question. So Likert scale consists of several declarative statements that express a viewpoint on a topic. So the respondents are asked to indicate how much they agree or disagree with the statements. So the answers usually come in the form of acronyms. Example, SA for strongly agree, A for agree, D for disagree, SD for strongly disagree. So in this example, this is a Likert scale that measures attitudes towards the ban of cell phones in school. So ito yung question or the item. And then yung respondents will have to choose if they strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree sa statement na to. So that is for the Likert scale. And then the review of semantic differential scale. So the respondents are asked to rate concepts on a series of bipolar adjectives. So the advantages in using this are that it is flexible and easy to construct. So again, bipolar adjectives, no? So semantic differential scale, example, description of the school librarian. Okay, ang tinatanong dito is the school librarian. ito yung ating parang directions. You have here the competent or incompetent. One, so pipili ka kung the school librarian is competent, or that is 5. 4, neutral ko number 3. And then if you move towards to 2 or 1, that is more nagiging incompetent na. You're moving towards the opposite direction, which is incompetent. On the other hand, yung competent, yung 5, 4. Okay, punctual. So again, 5, 4. Neutral kapag 3. And then you are moving to not punctual kapag you choose 2 or 1. So again, the respondents will choose um, the response or the answer to this question. So again, this is a semantic differential scale. So all instruments, yung mga questionnaires na yan, should pass the validity and reliability test before they can be considered in a research study. So let's discuss shortly the criteria for evaluating the validity of a quantitative instrument, which include reliability and validity. So when you say reliability, it is the consistency with which an instrument measures the attribute if reliable ito. Kaya tinawag na reliability. So under this, we have three aspects, which include the stability, internal consistency, and equivalence. And then, pag sinabi namang validity, it is a degree to which an instrument measures what it is supposed to measure, or this is the ability to gather data that is intended to gather. So the greater the validity of an instrument, the more confidence you can have that the instrument will obtain data that will answer the research questions or test the research hypothesis. Ano yung aspects of validity? You have phased validity, content, criterion-related validity, and construct validity. So I will not be discussing them thoroughly, but it's important that you know these concepts. Have an independent study about this topic, including your concept of measurements, which was tackled in your statistics. So let's talk naman what are standardized questionnaires. So a standardized questionnaire is one that has gone through psychometric validation. That means the items used in the questionnaire have been shown to, number one, offer consistent responses or reliability. That is about reliability. Two, measure what they are intended to measure. So that is about validity naman. And then yung number three, are able to differentiate between good and bad qualities. And that is sensitivity. So ibig sabihin, kapag standardized questionnaire, ito ay valid and reliable na sila. Kaya nag-undergo na sila ng process of psychometric validation. So when you are looking to measure a construct or a variable, a good first step is to see whether someone else is already measuring it and whether an existing standardized um, questionnaire exists. That is by conducting your RRL. Yun muna yung una nyo dapat na consider in your study. Now, kung wala talagang available na standardized questionnaire, that's the time na gagawa kayo ng sarili nyong questionnaire to measure your variables. So if you will be using a researcher-made instrument, ibig sabihin, kayo lang yung gumawa ng questionnaire or instrument ninyo, before you can use that instrument to gather data for your study, most especially in quantitative research, it has to undergo reliability and validity testing. So you have to consult your advisor about this matter so that you will be guided about the process. On the other hand, kung hindi naman researcher-made ang instrument ninyo, if for example, you find a pre-existing instrument or yung tinatawag nating standardized instrument that will be useful to measure a key variable in your study, there are two ways that the instrument can be used in that or in your study. So, ibig sabihin, nakahanap ka ng instruments that are appropriate to measure your variables. It can either be adopted, letter O, versus adopted, letter A. Okay? So, adopting muna tayo. Sa letter O muna tayo. So, the first is to take the instrument nearly verbatim or verbatim, which is called adopting the instrument. So, meaning, gagamitin mo yung instrument as it is. Okay, verbatim. When the instrument is adopted, then the reliability and validity research studies that have been conducted on that instrument can be applied to your study. So you do not have to collect validity evidence. So adopting an instrument links your study to all other research studies that have used the same instrument. And adopting the instrument saves you time and energy in making significant changes. Ang challenge lang ay kung fit at appropriate ba talaga yung instrument to your study if you are going to adopt. And then, on the other hand, you can significantly alter the instrument, like adding or removing items and or substantially changing the content of each item, which is called adapting. Letter A naman siya. Meaning you will modify the instrument. So when an instrument has been adapted or modified, letter A, then it has been significantly changed, so the reliability and validity evidence will not apply to your study na. So meaning ipapa-validity and reliability test mo pa uli siya kapag ka may pinalitan ka, may change ka, or minodify mo yung instrument na i-adapt mo. So yan yung kaibahan ng dalawa. Now, regardless kung may ibahin ka or you will adopt the instrument as it is, kailangan mo magpaalam sa original author or creator of that instrument. Either you email that author or you communicate whatever means yung meron ka. So you can ask for permission to use his or her instrument for your study. Okay? So make sure again na makakapagpaalam sa author or sa creator of the instrument before you use your instrument. So be guided by your advisor. How would you address or ask permission sa creator ng instrument na yon? So that proper yung communication ninyo. Okay, so what to write? So if for example, okay na ang iyong instrument na ginawa at nag-pass na siya sa validity and reliability test, or kung ikaw naman ay nakahanap ng standardized questionnaire appropriate to measure your variables, then you are now ready to write this section. So what are you going to write? First, introduce this part by discussing the number and types of instruments used in the study. Second, after the overview, each instrument is allotted one subsection, and the following are the guidelines for discussing each. So the name of the subheading is the name of the instrument. So use the type of instrument if there is no proper name. Next, cite the creator or the proponent of the instrument if applicable, kung meron lang, and then discuss the purpose, characteristic, or content, including the subscales of the instrument. Discuss the validity or reliability of the instrument, and you have to cite your related literature for this. And then indicate which objective, concept, or variable this measurement or this instrument is addressing or going to measure, and then justify why this is the best instrument for your study. So you have to contextualize. And remember, yung actual form of the instrument is attached in the appendix. Yung pinaka questionnaire nyo, i-attach nyo siya sa as one of your appendix in your appendices section. So, for example, we have this previous study entitled The Psychological Impact and Coping Strategies Among Public School Teachers in Schools Division of Bulacan During Coronavirus Pandemic. So, you label the section as Instruments of the Study. So, times Roman 12 bold. So, yung first natin, we have this part as our introductory statement. Itong first paragraph. So, discussing the number and types of instruments used in the study. Okay? And then yung pangalawa, after this overview, the first instrument subsection is discussed. So with subheading of the name of the instrument, and in this case, impact of event scale revised is the name of the instrument. So naka-bold and then in-italicize siya. Then we have here the proponent or creator of the instrument, si Weiss and Marmar, 1997. And the discussion of the purpose or characteristic or content, including the subscale of the instrument follows. So, ito na siya. Ito na yung mga details, kumbaga, of this instrument. So to continue, we have here further discussion, including the subscales pa. We have the subcomponents, such as the intrusion, avoidance, hyperarousal. And then we have here the discussion of the psychometric properties na. Psychometric properties, including the validity and reliability of the instrument. So remember to cite the ideas you borrowed from the RRL. So cite accordingly. So kagaya niyan, ito yung mga citation niya. Weiss and Mar 1997, Marina 2013. And then take note, you have to indicate the scores of the reliability and validity test of your instrument. Just like yung mga nakabilog in this example. Okay, so for example, the alpha coefficient, Weiss and Marmar 1997 reported high internal consistencies of the three subscales with alpha coefficients ranging from 0.79 to 0.92 and a high test retest reliabilities with correlation coefficients ranging from, so yan yung mga scores ng ating validity and reliability tests, and we indicate them in this section. So again, cite the studies properly. So mahalaga dito yung thorough reading of your RRL. So continuation pa din, and then we have here the indication of what will the instrument measure. So it will measure the psychological impact of COVID-19 variable, which is the independent variable of the study among the public school teachers in Bulacan. And then finally, the justification why this is the best instrument for the study. Ito yung kanyang justification. So this is the most appropriate instrument since it will measure the degree of distress a person experience during stressful event and in this context, the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so then you have here the second instrument, and you just follow the guidelines of what to include, just like what we did in the first example. So kung tatlong instruments yan, you will include yung mga eto, okay? itong mga bagay na to for each instrument. Okay, so, and ayan, that is for our instruments of the study. So next section is data gathering procedure. So fifth na natin, data gathering procedure. So this section outlines the whole procedure of accessing, collecting, organizing, storing, and destroying data. So what do we write here? So this section is divided into the following parts. So it will vary depending on the research design. So number one, you have your pre-data collection procedures if applicable. If for example, magpa-pilot testing kayo or pre-entry phase, kung meron yan, then you include that. Second, procedures for securing clearances or seeking for permissions. So you also have to include that. Under this, we have administrative clearance from the institution where the study will be collected, social license to participate for community-based studies, and then clearance to access records, again, if applicable lang naman in your case. Number three, process of recruitment and securing individual informed consent. So under that, nilalagay natin yung informed consent process for adult subject, and then parental consent and child's assent process for minors naman. And then the step-by-step process of data collection. So in here, we indicate all the materials needed, the roles of the members of the research team, specific details of each activity, time allotment for each step, and properly cited literature to justify the steps undertaken. So it will vary depending on your research methods. For example, the administration of an online survey is different from a written survey. Interviews are different from FGDs or focus group discussion for qualitative research. So that is for number four, the step-by-step process ng pagko-collect mo na ng data collection ng collection, ng data. And then yung fifth is the process of data storage, security, and organization. And finally, process of data destruction. So note that you can present a diagram or a flow chart that summarizes all procedures. And you can also present a Gantt chart during your proposal. And then I just showed you here the example of a Gantt chart, an example of a Gantt chart, which you may use. So a Gantt chart is a plan of activities in the duration of your research. So this involves preparing a schedule of activities. So if your advisor asks you to create one, please do so. So that is a Gantt chart. And then we have here a sample diagram of data collection procedure. So I'll just flash it quickly for your reference. So ito yung mga steps ng ating data collection. Naka-ano lang siya, naka-diagram lang siya. Okay, so, and then flash ko lang ulit dito yung methods of collecting data like survey, interview, FGD, journaling, etc. So these are the ways on how you can collect data from your respondents. And then again, dito naman sa right side, yung mga instruments you can use. Mahalaga na alam mo or alam nyo yung mga data collection procedure na yan. Okay, for our example and format, the title of the study is Continuing Professional Education Needs of Nurses in Private Hospitals in the City of Malolos, Perspective in Developing a Training Program for Nurses, VRI 2018. So I will not read the example thoroughly. Ang mahalaga sa section na ito ay mailagay nyo yung mga guidelines of what to write na binanggit ko kanina. Okay, so the title of the section, Data Gathering Procedure, Times New Roman 12 bold. So yan. And then this is the continuation of example 1 natin. So pinakita dito how the data and forms were stored and destroyed. Ito, so forms, sheets were stored in secured cabinet. All data was destroyed after successful, etc. Okay, so yan. So example number 2 from Subido 2020. So in this example, naka-number yung steps that the researcher will observe. So you may also do the same para mas clear or organize, mapakita yung data collection procedure na gagawin nyo. So ito, continuation. Ito yung example. Itong study kasi na to is 2020. So this is during COVID-19 pandemic. Kaya you can see here the IATF or DOH protocols to be observed during pandemic. And continuation pa rin ng example number 2 ni Subido 2020. So again, this is for your reference. Kindly read na lang para mas ma-enlighten kayo. So the third example is a qualitative data gathering procedure. So the title is Unfolding of a New Beginning, the Meaningful Journey of Doctorally Prepared Nurse Educators. So this is my paper and this is the statements for data gathering procedure. So again, for your added reference, this is a qualitative example. So continuation of the same section, and this is the last part. Okay, so that is actually the data gathering procedure natin. So I provided 3 examples. We now proceed to the data processing and statistical treatment section naman. Sa ibang school, ang label nila sa section na ito ay data analysis. So ayan, pang ano na to? So okay, pang 6 na natin. So this section outlines how the data is to be analyzed to answer each specific research question. So the term statistical treatment is used when a researcher applies a statistical method to a data set to draw meaning from it. So statistical treatment is divided into 2 groups. So you have descriptive statistics, which summarize research data as a group or summary statistics. Second, you have inferential statistics, which make predictions and test hypotheses about research data. Okay, so what to write for this section? For research questions to be addressed by quantitative data, specify what major type of statistics you're going to apply, if it is descriptive or inferential statistics or combination of the two. Then, identify clearly the statistical tool to be used per objective. So the scoring scheme and statistical treatment to be used are presented. Verbal interpretations of the ranges of findings must also be indicated. So the explanation should be parallel to each research question. So, pwedeng naka-number or naka-paragraph yung pagsulat nyo ng section na to. So, let's have this for our example. So, 1, to answer research question number 1, specify nyo na lang kung ano yung research question na yon. Frequency and percentage will be used. So, 2, to answer research questions number 2, specify again what is question number 2 is all about. Weighted mean will be used. So below is the verbal interpretation of the scores. So ito yung ating verbal interpretation of, this is the range of score, and then this is the interpretation. And then, ayan lahat ng ito yung pinakabuong table natin. So, mag-include kayo ng table presenting the range of scores and verbal interpretation for each range of score. Nakukuha nyo yung information na yan sa questionnaires nyo kasama ng scoring and in analyzing the data that you will collect. Next, number 3, to answer research question number 3, again, specify kung ano yung statement na yon or yung question number 3. So the depression scale scores will be computed. So then the mean of the score will be generated and interpreted accordingly, showing again another table. Okay, so and then to answer question number 4, one-way analysis of variance or ANOVA will be used. The Turkish test will be used as post hoc. If the p-value is lower than 0.5, then the hypothesis will be rejected. So yan yung mga example na you can include for this in this section. Kung ilan ang problem statement nyo, yun din ang gagawa nyo ng ganitong write-up. Okay? So, mas organized at madaling makita kapag ganitong presentation yung ginawa ninyo. Naka per number. Okay? I mean, for each specific question, you have a specific statistical treatment or data processing na sinasabi or nilalahad in your paper. So later, I'll show you an example of an actual study. Okay, so in this slide, ito naman yung mga kailangan for qualitative data or qualitative research. So please be guided na lang for qualitative design. So may example din ako mamaya ng qualitative paper. So this is our actual paper sample and format. So the study is compassion fatigue vis-a-vis work performance of district hospital nurses. So Cosma et al. 2022. So label, data processing and statistical treatment. And you have here, so naka-paragraph naman to, one research question and then statement of the data processing or analysis. So research question number 1, so ito yung kanyang statement and how the data will be processed and analyzed. So again, I will not be thorough in reading the example. So we have here table of verbal interpretations of the range of findings for compassion fatigue. This paragraph is for research question number 2. So compassion fatigue, this is how the data will be processed and treat. And then you have here the verbal interpretation. And then research question number 3, work performance. So again, the statement kung paano siya mapaprocess and matitreat yung data. And this is again another verbal interpretation. And then this is for research question number 4, this paragraph. And ang gagamitin na treatment to answer research question number 4 is the ANOVA. The ANOVA. So these tests were used to identify significant difference between respondents' profile and work performance and compassion fatigue. And then research question number 5, ang ginamit na treatment ay person-product moment correlation or Pearson's correlation. So ang kinorelate dito is yung work performance and compassion fatigue. So again, per research question, ini-indicate natin yung how you are going to process or analyze or treat the data. Okay, ini-specify natin if it's a descriptive statistics or inferential statistic. You have to be specific. Okay, descriptive or inferential, be specific. So, ayun, ito naman yung example natin for qualitative data analysis. So, ito yung title of the study. And again, this is for your additional reference na lang. And finally, the last section of this chapter is ethical considerations. So this is the seventh. So ethics generally is considered to deal with beliefs about what is right or wrong, proper or improper, good or bad. As an important human activity, research has also its own set of ethics. So research ethics establishes the moral integrity of the researchers, which is crucial as it ensures that the research findings are valid and trustworthy. Though we have a separate discussion of this in our Nursing Research 1 lecture, I would like to touch the concept of the external review. Okay, so for this, we have the Institutional Review Board or the IRB. Sa iba, it is termed as Review Ethics Committee or REC naman. So most hospitals, universities, and institutions where research is conducted have established formal committees and protocols for reviewing proposed research plans before they are implemented. So, bawat institution natin, bawat school, university, hospital, or organization, meron ng IRB kapag sila ay magko-conduct ng research. So, members of the board identify if the proposed plans or research meet the requirements for ethical research. So, these requirements are first, you have risk to participants are minimized, provision on safety, privacy, selection of participants is equitable, informed consent will be documented, safeguards are included for vulnerable subject. So ito yung mga requirements na tinitingnan ng members of IRB if na-observe natin. So in our context, kapag natapos na kayo sa proposal defense nyo at na-approve na ito ng panelists nyo, mag-undergo yung research nyo sa IRB or in other institution, it's called as REC nga or Review Ethics Committee. So nire-review nila yung study nyo if you are complying with all the ethical considerations. So once approved, dun pa lang kayo pwedeng mag-data collection. So this section explains the ethical dimension of the study. So what do you include or what to write? So the following parts must be discussed in this section. So first, the plans for IRB or REC process, yung obtaining their approval. And then competency of the researchers, identification of vulnerable population, if applicable lang. Again, kung applicable tong if vulnerable yung population na target ninyo or will be respondents, so ito yung mga i-observe nyo. So declare which population is vulnerable, explain why these participants are considered as vulnerable, protective measures to be undertaken by the research team to address vulnerability, and then cite sources for your claims. Again, if applicable lang, kung vulnerable yung population ninyo. So that's the first three of what to write in your ethical considerations. Next, identification of risk. Kung may risk na kaakibat yung inyong research work. So, in here, you have to identify the risk to participants involved, categorize the risk involved, either physical, psychological, social, or economic, and then categorize whether the risks are minimal, moderate, or high, categorize whether the risks have low or high probability, and then explain how you as a researcher will address this risk, and then again properly cite your cite sources for your claims. So that is for the risk naman. And then we proceed with the autonomy. For the autonomy, ito naman yung mga dinidiscuss natin. You explain the informed consent process parental consent and child's assent for subjects that are minors if applicable. Indicate how you will ensure full disclosure, full comprehension, and voluntariness in securing consent. For community-based research, again, kung applicable lang to in your context, you have to explain the full process of acquiring social license to participate and properly cite sources for your claim. So that is for the autonomy of the respondents. And then we have data protection plan. How are you going to protect your data? So under this, we include the following. Explain the procedures that you will undertake in order to maintain the privacy of the participants. Explain in detail how you will keep information de-identified or anonymized and confidential. Explain where and how long you will store your data. Explain security measures and identify the personnel who will have access to the data. Explain the data destruction process and properly cite sources for your claims again. Tapos justice naman, another ethical consideration. So in here, you explain how equitable treatment for each participant will be achieved. Explain the specific details of compensation, if ever or if applicable siya, to be received by the participant. So that is for the justice. And then finally, declaration of conflicts of interest, conflicts of interest, affiliations, and financial interests of any research team member to the study. So, kung meron lang, conflict of interest. So, these are the things that we indicate or we include in this section, ethical considerations, no? So, in any ano naman to, in any order, so as long as you follow all the guidelines stipulated here, again, you will just include kung ano yung applicable in your study. Kung di naman siya um, sakop nung study nyo, then you do not have to indicate that in your paper. Okay, so we have, I just provided here, I'll just provide you with examples so that you will be guided on how you can write this section. So make sure lang that you follow the guidelines of what to include na i-discuss ko if applicable nga in your study. So this example number 1 is about compassion fatigue vis-a-vis work performance of district hospital nurses by Cosma et al. 2022. So ito, um, naka-number siya after an overview. So again, I'll just flash it for your quick reference. And then example number 2, this one is a qualitative study. Unfolding of a new beginning, the meaningful journey of doctorally prepared nurse educators. And this is the statements of ethical considerations of this actual research paper. So ayan siya. Continuation of the study pa rin. Example 2. Okay, so and then we have example number 3. So here we have the work of Subido 2020. So ethical considerations, this one is very comprehensive in discussing the ethical considerations ng kanyang study. So you have here the informed consent. So sometimes naiiba-iba lang din yung terms, no? So we have here the recruitment of the respondents, rights. Again, kay Subido pa rin to 2020. Example number 3 natin. Ito yung privacy and confidentiality, how it is observed in the study or how it will be observed in the study. And then data handling and storage naman. So, same example pa rin. Accuracy of results, tapos research misconduct. So, yan yung mga examples that can guide you in writing your ethical considerations. And actually, That's the last section of the methodology of the study. So, we have actually discussed everything. So, natapos na natin lahat ng sections for chapter 2, the methodology of the study. But I would like to proceed lang kasi after this chapter, it is significant to present your reference list section. So this one, you have to include this right after your ethical consideration kasi that's the last section for your proposal research. So again, what is reference list? It consists of all sources cited in the text of a paper. This is placed at the end of your paper and you have to observe the following. So title your list as your list of sources, references. The first line of the reference list entry is left-hand justified while all subsequent lines are consistently indented. So hanging indent yung tawag. Not natin. So this is about the formatting. So do not create separate lists for each type of information source. Books, articles, web documents, brochures, etc. They are all arranged alphabetically in one list by author's surname. Okay? So isang long one list na lang sila and then naka-alphabetically arranged lahat 'yan. And then you use APA format 7th edition. Okay, for your reference list. So review our discussion on how to format your references in the reference list, whether it's a journal, book, thesis, etc. So nasa discussion yun ng RRL. Now reminder, sabi natin everything you have cited in text appears in your reference list. Likewise, everything that appears in your reference list will have been cited in text. Ibig sabihin, yung mga na-cite mo lang in the body of your research paper, yun lang yung may entry sa reference list. On the other hand, yung mga nasa reference list mo naman, sila ay nag-appear in your research paper. Okay, so ito yung ating example. So you have here the title, references, nasa gitna siya, bold, Times New Roman 12. And then this is our entries. These are the entries of our references. So alphabetically arranged, again follow the APA 7th edition format. And nakahanging indent siya. So this is for the reference list or the references section. And lastly, let's talk about the appendices. Okay, so an appendix contains supplementary material that is not essential part of the text itself, but which may be helpful in providing a more comprehensive understanding of the research problem, or it is information that is too cumbersome to be included in the body of the paper. So a separate appendix should be used for each distinct topic or a set of data and always have a title descriptive of its contents. So suggested appendices, this may vary per university. Appendix A. So sa Appendix A, ang nilalagay natin dito, letter or letters of request, including correspondence to the owner of the instrument to be adopted. Diba magpapaalam nga kayo sa for example, mag-a-adapt kayo, you will have to seek for permission to the creators or original authors of that instrument. So, nilalagay natin siya under Appendix A, yung communication letter nyo na yun. Appendix B, this is where you place your research instruments. Kung tatlo yan, and then you have three research instruments for Appendix B. And then you have letter C for sample consent. This is referring to your consent form or the informed consent. So maglalagay kayo dyan ng example. Ang pinaka-form mismo. Okay? And then letter D, procedural steps for data analysis or audit data. So dito we also include raw tables, transcriptions, coding tables, etc. Appendix E, other pertinent documents related to research. Kung meron pa kayong needed to include. So, Appendix E natin nilalagay. Appendix F for photo documentation if only necessary. And then the last one, Appendix G, curriculum vitae. So these are all the appendices and these are the suggested um, things that you include for each appendix. So this is our example, Appendix A, letter of request, and this is the permission letter. And then Appendix B, research instrument. So this is the instrument. The title is personal view survey. Okay, so things to remember lang. Statements must be in future tense. If it is for proposal defense, again, naka-future tense kayo. Then cite your references accordingly. And please be guided by your assigned research advisor or yung RAs ninyo or RA ninyo. If you have questions, do not hesitate to ask them. So after ma-check at ma-approve ng advisor nyo ang chapters 1 and 2, so be ready na for your oral defense. So this time, proposal defense to be scheduled this final term. Further details will be given to you once na meron na tayong schedule for that. So, and that concludes my discussion, the last write-up for this semester in Nursing Research 1. Thank you for listening and happy writing, dear researchers. God bless you all.